Today we're going to hear from each of our guest writers about books and writers that have inspired them. Samuel Wagan Watson. Samuel's a poet. He was born in Brisbane. He's of Mununjali, Biriguba, German and Irish descent. His father and grandfather were both activists. He's the winner of the 1999 David Unipon Award for Emerging Indigenous Writers for his first collection of poetry of Muse, Meandering and Midnight. 3 more collections have followed: Itinerant Blues, Hotel Bone and Smoke Encrypted Whispers, which won the 2005 New South Wales Premier's Book of the Year Award and the Kenneth Slessor Poetry Prize. His opera, Die Dunkle Erde, premiered in Brisbane in 2004. It's about a German vampire who gets a taste for Aboriginal dreaming. Samuel's work's been translated into German, Norwegian and Indonesian. His poetry forms part of Brisbane's architectural landscape, and now its reach has extended to the International Space Station. I'd now like to invite Samuel Wagan Watson to the podium.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here at the Sydney Writers Festival. Again, the last time I was down here, I think I took too many accolades home and they didn't invite me back since. I was just happy with that one. Being back in Sydney though, especially at this area, being an Indigenous man, it's both inspiring and eerie. Music has always played an incredibly important, pivotal place in my writing regime. Here in Sydney though, this is where the songlines of hundreds of thousands of years really soured for our people. With the first fleet came the sad songlines of both English, Irish, Scottish, UK immigrants. They joined the songlines of what ultimately would be the demise of almost 400 language groups, and language groups who used song as an incredibly important means of communication and protocols. So it's wonderful to be amongst you, but it does feel eerie to think, well, in this area was where the first sign-offs happened. This is where so many songs were stopped. This is where a lot of sad songs began. So I always think of that as a Mununjali and Biriguba man walking onto Gadigal country. In Melbourne last week, I kept thinking about the lands of the Kulin people and how their songlines are just, it's so easy to forget. I mean, God, there's all that shopping in Melbourne. It's so easy to forget that the songlines of the Kulin people were there way before the predominant tram lines of such a wonderful and vibrant city. So in saying that, I decided, unfortunately, I wanted to do a PowerPoint presentation tonight to really impress the asses off these wonderful writers about comics and manga and films that have inspired me. But of course, the festival didn't have the technical requirements for that, which I thought, well, music, and it's been a labour of love. I was up till 4 o'clock. Tuesday night I just didn't go to bed. I was going through my music collection. There were so many pieces of music that just really inspired me as a child. Growing up in the 70s in Brisbane, Mum and Dad being activists, we'd have people from the Labor Party over on Saturday afternoons and people from the unions, and there'd be these incredible raps. And behind those raps and the clanking of beer bottles and the smell of barbecue and the yap of Labradors, there would be Janis Joplin going off, and the Doobie Brothers, and the occasional Cheech and Chong, you know. Who is it? It's Dave, man, Dave. The absolute simplicity of the timing in that writing, I mean, it really instilled something in me as a child. I used to remember going through my parents' vinyl collection, just staring at Folsom Prison Blues, the album cover, thinking, my God, how the hell did he get out of that prison to write a song about, I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. Growing up in Bajolki Peterson, Queensland, and having relatives and kindred in Bogger Road, I really drew an instant understanding of what Johnny Cash went through. And for a long time, I feared Johnny Cash. Like, if I listen to too much Johnny Cash, I'm going to end up finding out what it is to watch a man die. Unfortunately, Johnny Cash made the short list. And you have to have a short list of your musical influences. Johnny Cash, Iggy Pop, and Warumpi Band were in the short list. Warumpi Band for the fact, I just wanted to be in a band as a kid. My little sister, who's now a very promising, well-to-do lawyer here in Sydney. I was in grade 12 and I didn't know what I wanted to do. My sister was in grade 11 and University of Queensland was already trying to recruit her. She's like the Lisa Simpson to Bart. And I can remember my dad sitting at the table and I thought, hey, my dad's an activist. My dad's a cool guy. He's laid back. He got kicked out of University of Queensland, the same university that now employs him as a director of Indigenous Literature Studies. Don't know how that happened. But I can remember just one of those bad mornings, and parents, we all have those kids, there's those bad mornings. It was at the breakfast table, there was a confrontation, and my dad said, "Geez, what do you want to do with your life?" And it was an ultimate moment. I did the Twisted Sister thing. I jumped up. I want to rock. On the Mick Jagger pout. And the vein mark still in my father's forehead. Remember the table. Hey, he's got a poet's son and a lawyer's sister. All good poets need a lawyer sometime or another. So it worked some way. But music, and I'm not just talking about, it is incredibly healing. Music has always been important to my people. The warriors of my grandmother's tribe, my grandmother was born on the steps of Mount Tambourine, and like many other tribes, they had to be just as good as singer and performer as in the arts of death. When they walked onto someone else's country, they would sing a welcoming song, a song that would let the spirits know, I'm coming onto your land. And when they took their foe out, they would have to sing a song to take that foe's spirit into the dreaming. Not that I've developed as an articulate warrior as such. I think I need to go to the gym a bit more, and it's a few kilos on my boomerang. It's not coming back. But yeah, my shortlist. Back to my shortlist. So it was Johnny Cash. For the simple fact, as a very young child, I heard him say, I wear black for the working class. And growing up on the south side of Brisbane, on Yagara country, and country that there was always the smell of burnt rubber. There was always a family who was in some sort of strife. Amazingly enough, so many great minds came out of my neighbourhood, especially the Page boys, who are blood relatives from the Mununjali culture. We came out of that neighbourhood. So Johnny Cash and Iggy Pop, especially Iggy Pop, Detroit, that whole Detroit music scene. But Iggy Pop, I just have to say, he's a man, the audience really he really gave it his best. He still does give it his best. I'm surprised he's survived this long. American Caesar would have to be one of my favourite albums, an album in my collection, because when he sort of explodes into that sort of Mexicano, LA kind of night, it really reminds me a lot of the south side of Brisbane, which really is. If any of you ever come to Brisbane, all the rich people live on the north side, the south side, we're the Mexicans. It's, but A lot of those gringos, we end up marrying their daughters, so I don't know what happens there. And Warumpi Band, of course, and I won't mention Uncle's name, he passed away. They were one of the most explosive bands on the scene, and now, being a writer, I've had the absolute pleasure of working with members of the Warumpi Band. And our uncle, and in respect, I say Kumanjay, which is, in his people, the lead singer of Warumpi Band passed away last year from an illness. So I say Kumanjay, he really was the Black Iggy Pop and Mick Jagger. There have been so many nights I've seen them just explode on stage, and I'm talking about explosion, man. Little bits of black person cinder just sprinkling out over the crowd. Absolute energy. Which brings me now to the three in my final shortlist. Kev Carmody and Paul Kelly's song, From Little Things, Big Things Grow. It is a song that has been so personal to me, but it is the song about the ballad about the Gurindji strike, which was an incredible moment, not only for Indigenous rights but workers' rights in the country. What I love about the song From Little Things, Big Things Grow is that it puts some humanity into a strike, because I'm sure before that song came out, it was just something in maybe the history books, which a lot of mainstream Australians maybe viewed as, a bunch of natives just having a bitch up in the territory. But these were people like so many. I don't think there's one Indigenous family across this country who don't have a generation of their family who were like the Gurindji, who just worked for rations. The Gurindji sat down, the Gurindji stopped, a multinational company. They got their rights, they got their land. So the Kev Carmody, Paul Kelly song, for me, it put some humanity back into that strike. It put a face, an actual face, to the action. From Little Things, Big Things Grow, and it's one of those songs that resounds. I'm still sort of analysing the apology by our current Prime Minister. And I have to say, I had a really good book 6 months ago, and Howard's gone. Who's going to remember John Howard in 6 months? I mean, I've just been doubly screwed by Howard. No one's... If I kept writing that book, people go, John who? No, but to have the Paul Kelly, Kev Carmody song resound again and to be used in forums that support the apology, it just goes from strength to strength. My second, one of the ultimate influences in my life has, of course, been Tom Waits. Like so many of us here, Tom Waits reminds me of so many crooked men from my childhood, people from my working class background. I first fell in love with Tom Waits, and like a lot of young writers, I went through my Bukowski stage. But at least Tom Waits, he kept it together and he put the audience first. And when I work with emerging writers, I say, put the audience first. The customer is always right. Tom always keeps it right for the audience. So I'll never forget, it's a bit of a myth now about a morning when I work in radio, and morning radio is one of the most competitive and hard slots in radio. And Tom turned up to an interview with a bottle of whiskey, and the DJ said, Tom, I see you, it's a bit early for drinking. And he said, yeah, well, I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy. There's so much in his work that for me, it's just a consistent songline, and anyone who has bought the Orphans, his latest offering, the Orphans album, I mean, there's spoken word, there's poetry, there's ballads. It just goes from strength to strength. I think there's still some of his best work to come out yet, and I think he really is a spokesperson for that kind of experimental artist, which I mean, risk. I really love the way Tom Waits risks. He takes risks. he works with all sorts of musicians. And collaboration, I think, is a very important thing, especially in Australia when the multinationals are pushing poetry out. You know, if you know a poet out there and you are a talented artist yourself, collaborate. I think that's one of the things that stands out in Tom Waite's work is collaboration, take a risk, and it always pays off. And brings me to my final influence, and that was a Delta bluesman, Robert Johnson. There's there are so many facets. My next book is kind of based on the myth of the crossroads, and indeed so many Indigenous missions around Australia and reserves where our people are all rounded up and moved to have these similar crossroads. They have these similar myths of making deals with the devil. In fact, one of my favourite Tom Waits songs are "You Got to Get Behind the Mule" from Mule Variations. That was Robert Johnson's stepfather's voice. He hated Robert. Robert wanted to be a musician, and he said the problem with Robert was he didn't want to get behind the mule in the morning and plough. And he used to beat Robert, and that's when Robert got on the road. And then, of course, he wasn't an accomplished guitarist, and he disappeared for a little while, and there was that myth. He went down to the crossroads and sold his soul to the devil. And the beautiful thing about some of the people who are still alive from my family, they have these stories of the devil men who were the epitome of all the evil from what had happened and that sudden crash of Indigenous culture and Christianity. There are just so many crossroads that I know of, areas around Brisbane and the country. If any of you have been into the Territory and gone to just a little place just outside of Tennant Creek where the Coniston massacre happened, it is there's a crossroad there. It is just incredibly eerie country. It's something evil straight out of a Nicholas Rothwell novel. It's the resonating sound of evil. It's still there. But Robert Johnson was one of those. I mean, even if he didn't go down to the crossroads and make his deal with the devil, what a marketing exercise. I mean, it was during the Depression. There wasn't such a thing as marketing for music, but his words, his simple chords that became something elegant, will and always be an absolute inspiration to me. I was going to play my harmonica tonight, but I think that's probably the wrong thing. My 11-year-old filled one of my harmonicas full of pepper the other day. I was getting ready for work, so I sort of took that as a sign then that maybe playing the harmonica for the panel and you all at the Sydney Writers Festival was not the best thing. He also said to me the other day, I was looking for a jacket, and he said, "That looks great on you, Dad," in a Brokeback Mountain kind of way. So somehow my little boy's not a musician, but he also does make my shortlist as one of my great influences. Thank you very much.
Today we're going to hear from each of our guest writers about books and writers that have inspired them. Helen was born in Geelong, and her work covers a very broad range of genres, including feature journalism, for which she's won a Walkley, reviews, novels, short stories, screenplays and non-fiction books. She's published 3 collections of short stories: Honour and Other People's Children, Postcards from Surface and My Hard Heart. The first of her 5 novels was Monkey Grip and was made into a film, which she also wrote the screenplay for. It was followed by Moving Out, The Children